Okay, so just figured I'd show my grease setup right quick. Um, so I used to work at a shop that we had um, the smaller barrels of grease. I forget what they are, like 30-gallon barrels or whatever they are. And we use that for grease, but at at first anyways, but it was a giant pain in the ass because we didn't have it set up on reels plumbed through the shop or anything like that. It was just, a 30 whatever gallon barrel, those things are, of grease, and then a grease pump on it, just like this one here. An air operated grease pump, but the hose was just wrapped around the barrel like it is here, but it was like a 75-foot hose or some stupid shit. And so once you got it stretched out, it wasn't so bad. You could go around and grease an entire truck, piece of equipment, whatever, and no big deal. But anytime that you wanted to use the thing, if you wanted to go 10 feet away from where the grease pump was, you had to sit there and unwind the damn thing, and it was just a huge pain, and it sucked. And so, what that shop ended up doing was buying grease tubes by the absolute case, and I wish I had some way of knowing how many thousands of grease tubes we went through there, but it was really kind of disgusting how many we went through. Not only creating a huge amount of garbage from those grease tubes, but they're a pain in the ass to change, and it's time consuming to change them more so than if you were to run off bulk grease. I also worked at another shop where we had a 55-gallon drum of grease in a back room, and it was plumbed throughout the entire shop. And we had, I don't know, 10 grease hose reels or some shit like that, and that was really cool because you essentially had an unlimited supply of grease. If a piece of equipment took 5 tubes of grease or something like that, if you're hooked up to a 55-gallon barrel plumbed through the shop, then it's fantastic. You don't have to spend any time changing grease tubes or something like that. And it never fails that if you have tubes, you pick up a grease gun and, you're at like a quarter left or something in there, and there's not a good way of topping off a grease gun. Where with like even something like this here, being like a bulk grease setup, then it's it's a lot cheaper to buy the grease in bulk, and it's a lot easier to deal with and everything. But then on the other hand, in the case of that shop where we had the 55-gallon barrel and grease plumbed throughout and 10 grease hose, uh, grease hose reels or whatever, it was cool. You never changed a grease tube, but if you wanted to say go do something out in the parking lot or whatever, you couldn't do that. Then you had to go back to using a regular grease gun with grease tubes in it, and then you go walking out in the parking lot, and sure as shit, you get like 4 grease fittings done or something, and you fucking run out of grease, and it was just pain in the ass. I hated it. Never want to deal with it again. So for me now, I don't have the need to buy grease in the 30-gallon drums or 55-gallon drums or anything like that. I wanted to get them in 5-gallon pails, and there's a lot of air operated grease pumps out there that are intended to go on a 5-gallon pail, but I wanted something that had wheels and shit on it, and you can see here this little dude is on its own little bucket, I guess you'd call it, with wheels and shit on it. It's got, a little handle on the top and everything, so you can just pick it up and toss it in the truck, and works great. The pump on it seems to be, very good quality and everything. And Roughneck, so got it from Northern Tool. Pump seems to be, really good quality. I really don't have anything bad to say about the pump itself. I think I put a pressure gauge on it once, and it would make like 8,000 psi of grease or something. Don't quote me on that. But yeah, the pump works fine and everything. But all the rest of it, the handle assembly and this top piece here and this little bucket here, are really pretty fucking chintzy. And it's really annoying. And what is the worst thing about this, and I don't know if they mention it on the website or not, because I sure shit didn't know it before I got it. But the worst thing about this, and the biggest pain in the ass, is that this little bucket here is only about 3 gallons. It will only take about 3 gallons or so of grease, which to me is just fucking retarded. If you're getting bulk grease, you're getting it in one of a couple ways: either a 5 gallon pail, the 30 whatever gallon drums, or a 55 gallon drum. So where the fuck does this 3 gallons come from? I don't understand it. But suffice to say, it works good otherwise. You can see I put a bit of silicone on here because it had like an open gap, and I didn't want, dust and shit to get in there, because of course it sits in the shop and then it gets all dusty and crap. And the point is to try and keep this shit clean. But anyways, so that's what I do, is I buy grease in a 5 gallon pail and use this little fart here. And then, this is small enough, like I said, it's easy enough to toss in the truck. And I don't have a need to have, a 30 gallon drum permanently on the truck or nothing like that. So yeah, this is how I buy the grease in the 5 gallon pails and shit. But then what I do is I use just regular grease guns after that. And I also have several Milwaukee cordless grease guns with these clear tubes on them here. And these clear tubes, you can flip the seal around to where if you wanted to put a grease cartridge in here, you could. But I really like bulk loading these things, because then you can see exactly how much grease you have in there. And I forget the company name that makes these clear ones. But you can actually get these things straight from Lincoln. Straight from Lincoln with the clear tubes on it. And I have found that the Lincoln manual guns are the best quality that you can get out there nowadays. Back in the day when shit was still American made and whatnot, there was a lot of good companies. And these Lincoln plungers are really nice too. So I've actually converted my Milwaukee grease gun to take converted, I just swapped it out. I've got Lincoln plungers on my Milwaukee grease guns, because the Milwaukee plungers would leak grease like crazy, and there'd be a big old, fucking smear going on back here and everything, and it was a big pain in the ass. So I actually took the Milwaukee plungers and I think I just fucking threw them in the scrap or whatever. But, yeah, so clear grease gun with, bulk loading it. And, if I remember right, because it's been a little while since I've bought these things. If I remember right, they either had just a plug in the end here, or they had Lincoln's bulk fill adapter. And you can get grease pumps, like manual grease pumps that go in a 5 gallon pail, that take that Lincoln bulk fill adapter, and then you can fill one of these hand grease guns in only a couple pumps or whatever. But what I did was I took that out and I put just a regular grease nipple in the end of here, and I just fill them that way. And then I have the Lock and Lube grease couplers, which are about the coolest shit since sliced bread. These things are fantastic. But so just stick that on there in the frame. Yeah. But yeah, so yeah, just stick that guy on there. And I'm sure that you could probably that you could probably change a tube faster than filling one like this, but this is way the fuck easier, and just, you know, less of a headache to deal with and everything. And yeah, like, okay, first world problems that, you know, complaining about changing a fucking grease tube or something like that. But I never get air in the grease guns doing this. I just absolutely never have a problem with that whatsoever. And what's cool with having just a regular old grease nipple in there is if I go to my customer shop and I grease their equipment, you know, I just refill my grease guns off of their bulk setup that is, you know, the 30-gallon pail and such. That way I don't have to like charge separately for grease because I'm using theirs, but I also don't have to run around with their grease pump, and I can do shit by hand like this. Or use the Milwaukee grease gun. And so, yeah, on the end here, you can see there's a swivel on the end there. I got that guy from Lock and Lube, and then got the Lock and Lube couplers. And the reason this shit's spray painted is I have different types of grease, and I spray paint the guns different colors to indicate what it is. But the Lock and Lube grease coupler is the coolest shit since sliced bread. It is absolutely fantastic. Once you use one, I doubt that you'll ever go back. They're really, really nice, and I've never had one pop off of a grease fitting. I think one or two of them, the sealing surface on the inside of here wore out, but you can actually get parts kits from Lock and Lube and change these jaws on the end here and the little sealing surface on the end there, so that you can reseal one of these things and keep using it. And because there's really not a whole lot to fail with the rest of it here. The only problem with the Lock and Lube couplers is that they're obviously rather big. So if you compare it to a normal grease coupler here, they're obviously a fair bit larger. And you have to pull this back to be able to get it onto a grease nipple. And so sometimes you don't have the room, you know, maybe you don't have room to get this in the first place, or you can get the Lock and Lube coupler in there, but then you can't also get your hand in there to release it. But the cool thing is that that these things grip on so tight, like they're, you know, really just not fucking coming off unless you were just to break it off or whatever. You know, because it's not like these are indestructible, but they are very, very, very well attached on there. And so what I do is I just have a little whip hose, and because these lock on there so well, you can just have this little whip hose and then your standard grease coupler for getting into tight spots. And I've had those Lock and Lube couplers, and my I've got 3 Milwaukee grease guns actually, and a number of these Lincoln manual ones for a couple years now, and like I said, they're absolutely fantastic. You know, these modern Lincolns are unfortunately made overseas, but they are the heaviest built and highest quality manual grease guns that I've found, like current production. Of course, a lot of, you know, like I said, there's a lot of really good old grease guns out there. But I just got this Flexzilla grease gun hose in today, and I've got some of the Flexzilla airlines and, you know, water hoses and all that kind of stuff. And this fucking grease hose is, you know, really kind of like lives up to their name and everything. It's really kind of incredible how much nicer this makes it. And like I said, I just got it today. I just greased my backhoe, so I don't have very much experience, you know, well, I have essentially no experience with the grease hose, but seems like other people really like them. And so far, I would tend to agree with that. And so just right quick here. Here's my, well, one of my Milwaukee grease guns. And, oh, I guess I should bring that other one back. So I forget if I mentioned it or not, but these clear grease tubes, you can get them straight from Lincoln. Like you can get the Lincoln grease guns with the clear tubes already on it. Or if you just type clear grease tube into eBay, then it'll come up and you can get them on there. I forget the name of the company that makes these though. But you can see on this one here that the aluminum piece on here is a larger diameter than the clear plastic. And it's fine for one of these. It doesn't make any difference. But on the Milwaukee grease guns, you can see here that the billet aluminum part is the same diameter as the clear plastic. And the reason for that is because it's such a tight fit into the housing for the Milwaukee grease gun. And there's even this like adapter or whatever that you have to take out of the Milwaukee grease gun to put the clear grease tube in there. And so because of that, unless you have a lathe or whatever, and you can just turn this down, you have to buy the ones for the clear tubes for the Milwaukee grease gun straight from Milwaukee, which of course, they are happy to charge you more for than just going on eBay and getting one, or going to the manufacturer that actually makes these, because obviously Milwaukee doesn't make these themselves. But so I guess this is a pretty good example of why I wanted to do this here. You can just look at the grease gun and see that it could stand to take a little bit more. And with this setup here, it's very, very easy to do. Just like that. And when you set these tubes up for bulk fill like this, as opposed to the grease cartridges, you actually get a little bit more grease in there, because of course the grease cartridge itself takes up a little bit of volume inside the tube. And then lock and lube again on this one. And there's plenty of other videos that go into a little bit more depth on these Milwaukee grease guns, but these things are absolutely fantastic. The one that I have in here for the shop, I don't use all that much. I typically end up using the manual grease guns in the shop, but I've got one of these on my service truck that sees a fair bit of use, and haven't had a problem with them yet. But, yeah, there she is.